Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give others a chance to join. We're going to give it another minute or two, and then we'll make a start. Hi, welcome. Hi, Angela.
I'll just unmute myself, Casita, and say hello. That was a really good start, wasn't it?
Hello, yeah. We're just going to give it just another minute. People are coming in, and then we'll make a start. I'll welcome everybody formally.
No worries.
Just to let everyone know that we are recording this event, so and transcribing it, if that's okay with everyone.
Oh, I just want to say that I'm on the road at the moment. I'll be home in about 10 minutes, but I'm listening.
Not sure who said that, but that's absolutely fine. You can just listen in. That's fine. Okay, we are going to make a start, so we'll just ask everybody to mute, but you can unmute yourself to ask questions later on. We're going to use the chat facility, which is here. So I am just going to say hi in the chat to everyone so you can see that. So as we're going through the questions together, it's going to be very relaxed. We're just going to be asking Angela to introduce herself, asking her a few questions, asking her some questions about her own small business, and hoping that will help and inspire some of you here. So if we can just ask, if people coming in, Steph, if you could just mute them as they're coming in, and then we'll make a start. So we've got a few questions. Please use the chat to ask any questions that come to mind, and we will make a start now. So welcome, Angela. I'm going to be interviewing Angela today, so welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
So we've got a few questions for you here. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, can you share your story about how you became a group CEO and a small business owner? So first of all, how did you become a small business owner?
Okay, small business owner first. Okay, small business owner, probably oddly as part of my retirement plan. So when I was looking for my now current property, I wanted a property that had the potential for me to run my own business in time. So that was the plan, to be able to work for myself at some point in the future. And stumbled across a property that had some existing facilities on site. My small business is a cattery, so had a purpose-built cattery as part of the property already. Not in a half-planned Casita is the answer to your question, in that I had the thought process, but wasn't necessarily expecting to buy somewhere with ready-made premises. Hence how I came to be a small business owner, and I'm sure I'll tell you a bit more of the story as to what it's been like running a small business, and indeed running a small business with a day job too.
It's very interesting. So was the cattery being there a deciding factor? Did you think, this is just what I've been looking for, a cattery, or was it completely accidental and you thought, oh, a cattery?
I believe that we all, if we all do a job we enjoy, then we all do it well. And I'm lucky in that I have two jobs. I'm a CEO and an MD, and I love both of them. So I have that belief. And animals, I love animals. I have a menagerie. And I love animals of all sorts of shape and size and variety. So my kind of going back to my retirement plan was actually What do I enjoy doing? I enjoy working with animals. I enjoy being around animals. Animals generally enjoy my company too, which is kind of helpful. That works. So yeah, it would have been to do something with animals. Not specifically a cattery, but yeah, the cattery works. In that cats are probably my joint first favourite animal. So it worked from that point of view.
So tell us a little bit more about this group CEO role. So what does that involve?
Yeah, so being a group CEO of a college or a college corporation, as we are, I mean, what really does it mean? Well, it ultimately means I'm responsible for the strategic direction of the organisation. That's the first kind of major part of what being a group CEO is all about. And I'm also the accountable officer. And being the accountable officer means that I'm responsible for all the staff, all the students, and ultimately all of the activities within the organisation. So yeah, anything that goes really well, I can be the accountable officer for that. But anything that doesn't go so well, I'm the accountable officer for that too. So that's ultimately what being a group CEO is all about. Obviously, you know, we're a big business. You know, we're turning over around 130 million now, so we're a big business. Lots of different challenges around the finances, lots of different challenges around satisfying our regulators, making sure we meet the needs of our students, making sure we meet the needs of our apprentices, making sure we meet the needs of our staff. So without saying too much and boring everybody, Casita, that's broadly what a group CEO role is all about.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions later on about if there's some transferable skills there or any overlap. But the next question I've got for you is, what do you think are a couple of the most important qualities or skills for a successful entrepreneur? What do you think they are?
I'm probably not going to say anything new here, but I think resilience has to come into it. I think that's a really important quality. Determination would be my second. Then I think there's some skills around having a good eye for detail, I think is quite important, and having an awareness of external factors and things that are going to affect your business, your ideas, I think are important skills. And overriding all of that is just ambition. I think ambition is a great thing. And I think if you've got ambition personally, professionally, then your business will thrive.
Yeah, and I think that links to something that you said a few minutes ago about doing something that you love. And that can be a great motivator. If you're doing your business, it's something that you love, you're passionate about. That can be a great motivator as well. Thank you, Angela. So thinking about the things that you've just talked about, how have those qualities or skills helped you as a CEO of such a large college? How's it helped you?
Massively. I mean, I think, you know, as in any leadership role, regardless of the size of the organisation, you know, resilience is a really important factor. I think having a determination to, you know, to see the organisation thrive, to see the organisation succeed. For me, I want to see all of our students, all of our apprentices succeed. I want to see all of our staff succeed. So having that kind of, you know, that determination to see the organisation be successful in every sense is absolutely something that I carry with me in you know, both in running the college, but also in running my small business.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela. So another question is, what are the biggest challenges you faced growing that small business that you inherited with your property? What would you say that's the challenges have been for you?
Okay, so the biggest challenge, I think, for me, and probably always will be, and will be for lots of small businesses, is staff, and finding the right people. And I guess it's accentuated for me because I've got a full-time job. So I need a team that I know I can trust, that I know are gonna look after the welfare of the cats in our care, that are going to deal with our clients in the way that I would want. So staffing, I think, is certainly a big challenge. And I think it's a big challenge. I employ 3 people. So of course, when you have an individual, challenging individual, when you employ 3 people, it's amplified in terms of the challenge that it presents. The second is that I started running the cattery a year before lockdown. So have navigated my business through a once in a century, challenge, I think they said that COVID was. Experiencing making some really critical decisions around, for instance, do we close during COVID, or do we keep going? I furloughed a member of staff. We applied for some of the grants that were possible during the pandemic. So all of those, and again, it's probably not a typical everyday challenge, but that was a really big challenge, for a small business. And certainly, for me, lots of kennels and catteries did close during lockdown, understandably. I was really anxious about doing that, because the challenge for me was, had we made a decision to close, then when do you reopen? Because if you're closed, there's nobody to answer the telephone to get the business going when people did start to move. And of course, people board their cats with us, not just because they've gone on holiday, they might be visiting family, they might be moving house. There's all sorts of reasons as to why cats come to board with us. It's not just about holidays. So for me, it was a really challenging. Do I close? Do I stay open? We actually went down to 1 cat boarding us during lockdown, who was actually a gentleman. It's a funny story. He'd gone sailing in the Caribbean and had got stuck because he couldn't get home, because lockdown came while he was in the Caribbean. His cat was with us. And anyway, the cat ended up with us for a very long time. And when he eventually found his way back to Portugal, he messaged us, because obviously being at sea, he wasn't really contactable. He messaged us and said, I'm nearly on my way home. I'm in Portugal. I'll be home with you within the week. And then he messaged because Portugal went into lockdown and stopped all movements, and he got stuck in Portugal. So the cat was with us for an even longer period of time. So with 1 cat in residence, obviously, made a decision, to keep paying a member of staff, through that period. But it was great because she was great. She was painting the floors and doing other things that we wouldn't have otherwise got time to do. So certainly that was a big challenge, and a big test, I think, for any business owner, that sort of enabled you to learn about lots of different challenges all at once.
And who would have thought that in that period you just had 1, but you kept going and survived that whole lockdown period and continued going to now. And that follows on a little bit to my next question. How do you balance strategic thinking with the day-to-day operations of your small business? Just unmuted. You just muted, sorry.
That's all right, done. So how do I balance strategic thinking day to day? So I have an unfortunate brain that doesn't have an off switch. So it enjoys switching often between the two, and it kind of keeps going. So I'm constantly thinking about the strategy of the college, and where are we going, and what do we need to do, and what's happening politically, and what does that mean for us, and where do I need to be positioning us for the future. And then I come home and I'm setting up chalets for the cats that are coming in the next day, and filling up litter trays and laying out cat toys. And I think the balance is quite good actually, and they help each other in that actually the kind of the day-to-day looking after the cattery, you know, gives me quite a good outlet, and it means that, you know, I go into the cattery first thing every morning, I go into the cattery last thing every evening. The staff can contact me anytime if they need me. If they text me, it's not an emergency. If they ring, it's an emergency, is the kind of code. You know, so I've got that kind of constant kind of eye on both. And I think for me, I generally always have a plan, whether it's for the college or whether it's for my small business. I always have a plan. So the way I make decisions is that I make short-term decisions with a long-term goal in mind. And I think and I do that with both. What am I trying to achieve, and where am I trying to get to, and how does the decision I'm making right now affect where we're going to be in a month or 6 months or 2 years' time? And I think that's probably the balance. I hope that answers the question, Cassandra.
It does. It's actually answered 2 in one go, because the next one I was going to ask you was about any of that. How do you what do you take from your small business and apply it to your role as group CEO? And you've kind of answered that. That was really interesting. The other question I have is, how do you make time for both your businesses and your work, and time for yourself? How do you balance that?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, I think I've kind of mentioned it, having it, is that I believe having my small business helps me to be a more effective CEO, and it certainly helps me to understand the challenges that small businesses have. And, you know, part of a fundamental purpose of a college is to work with employers. And I think by having my own small business and having a micro business certainly enables me to understand the challenges employers face, and hopefully means that you know, that helps me in terms of positioning the college and everything we do. How do I make time? I guess the way I would describe it is that I run the big business by day and the little business by night. Is probably how I balance things, and that's sort of how it works out. So, for instance, with my small business, you know, I pay the wages on the last day of the month, and I have always consistently paid everybody's wages on the last day of the month. But it might be just before midnight when I finished payroll. But they know that, my team know that, they know they'll get paid, but they know it will be after I've got home from work and when I finish payroll, but they do know it's there. And they also know that, you know, if they're planning a big night out that night and they need a bit of their wages up front, then they know they can ask me and they can have some money up front so that they can have their big night out if they need it. So I think it's about balancing in that way, and I think it's about just being clear and communicating, and everybody kind of having an understanding of what you're doing. And I think, you know, the day job comes first. You know, that's an important thing. You know, but certainly I can balance them both. And somewhere along the lines, I think it's good for me too. I had to have that challenge.
And you sound like you enjoy the challenges that come with both. So would you say what you're doing now, dream job, group CEO, is it a dream job? Have we lost Angela? Okay, let me see if I can call her back in.
It says that she's still here, but I'm not quite sure what's happened.
Maybe it's just her camera that went off. Hi, Angela, you still there?
And yeah, her camera went and she was muted. I think she's back.
I'm sorry. Apologies.
You're back. Okay, no, it's fine. I was just asking you if this is your dream job, your small business, your night job. Is this your dream job?
Yeah, I mean, look, I love further education. I love colleges. You know, I think, you know, in terms of number, there are less colleges in the UK than there are universities and schools. So we are by default, therefore, the smallest part of our education sector in this country. But we're the smallest part of the education system, but we have the greatest reach. And by greatest reach, I mean that we have the ability to affect and impact the greatest kind of proportion of our society. And I love that. And I love what colleges do, and I love the work we do. And, you know, my job is to keep doing it, to make it better, you know, to make sure that Capital City College continues in the future to do fabulous work for thousands and thousands of individuals. So, you know, I absolutely enjoy running a college group, and enjoy knowing what we do for so many people every day, every week, every year. The category is, as I said at the beginning, it kind of is my retirement plan if retirement ever comes. But I do enjoy it, and because I have a desire that everything I do, I want to do to the best of my ability. I want to run the category to the best of my ability in the interim, and hopefully I will generate enough business and build enough reputation in the category currently, so that by the time I do start to think about retiring, I can double it in size, and then it will mean that the business has even greater longevity. And I'm hoping that everybody on the call is cat lovers. If you're not, then I really apologise, because this is kind of all about cats from a small business point of view. But just to give you some perspective, I'm licensed to hold 71 cats currently. So when I talk about increasing it in size, then, you know, I certainly now, having built the business up, think that in the busy months we could probably have 100+ cats in residence. So hopefully that will be part of the plan in terms of building the business and growing it a bit in scale.
Just one more question about the business before we have some questions about your personal growth and development. What do you enjoy most about your small business? What would you say, if you had to think about the single thing that you enjoy that brings you the most happiness from your small business? What would you say it is?
Oh gosh, can I have two rather than one? So I'm going. So two things, I think. The one is that so the other way I combine my two roles, if you like, is that I take a lot of students on placement in the category. So some of you may be aware that to be a veterinary surgeon, you have to do a placement in a kennels or cattery as part of training to be a vet, and therefore I take quite a lot of veterinary students on placement, and I also take college students on placement as well, studying animal welfare. And in fact, some of my best staff have come, join me after finishing their course at college. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy seeing individuals kind of grow into a role and flourish, and I enjoy training them and seeing the pleasure they get from doing their job well, from looking after other people's kind of prize feline furry friends, and seeing the pride that they take. So I really enjoy developing those individuals, and I hope that I'm helping them kind of on their journey in terms of their future careers. So I enjoy that. And the other bit that I underestimated how much I would enjoy when I started running the category, which is people are really grateful for the service that you provide, and I underestimated that. So when people, we've had cats come to stay with us, during a family emergency, or people have gone on holiday for the first time in years, and they've gone on holiday with peace of mind because they know their cat is well cared for, is safe, secure, and they come back and you can see the genuine appreciation for the service that we've provided. I underestimated. I thought I would just enjoy the company of the cats, but I underestimated actually how rewarding it is. You know, I had a lady collect a cat one weekend a few weeks ago, and she'd never used a category before. She was really nervous, very tearful when she left the cat, because she'd never done it before. And we post daily updates on Facebook as part of our service so that people can see their cats, and also it's quite a good marketing tool for the business as well. A kind of as an aside, and we posted her cat, and cat was fine and he was having a lovely time. And she came out and she said, I have never had such a restful holiday because I didn't worry about anything. And comments like that, you know, really do give you a lot of satisfaction, you know, about, you know, we're a little business, but actually, again, we're really helping people, and that's really rewarding.
Yeah. So you're taking care of the owners as well as the cats.
I
Because
guess
she
so.
was able
Yeah,
to have a,
so.
yeah. So thinking about you yourself, how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
Yeah, I think that's really important for all of us, because at no point should any of us stop learning. So I think that's, you know, I think that kind of continual growth and development is really important. And I probably do it through two ways. I listen. I think listening is really, really important. And I think in any leadership role, listening is a really important tool. You know, and I know there's, you know, there's all sorts of comments, isn't there, about, you know, actually how much speaking should you do versus how much listening and so on. But I think for my own growth and development, listening to everyone is really important, and something I really value. And I've been fortunate in that I've worked with brilliant teams, and I've learned from, you know, so many different people in so many different ways. So I think listening is really important. I guess the other way is that I'm fortunate in that I guess I'm at an age and stage in my career where I've been invited to join a number of networks. So I'm a companion of the Chartered Management Institute. I'm also a member of the Leaders of Great Britain. You know, as a kind of a couple of examples. And those networks are really good because they are networks where they hold events, they get speakers in, you know, and you can go and listen and learn from other people doing incredible things, you know, in other industries, in other walks of life. So I think for me, those networks are really, really helpful for my own growth and development.
And that follows on really nicely to the next question. So what either networks, books, mentors would you say have had the most significant impact on your career?
Now, I'm going to start with a bit of a corny one, sorry, but it's an honest answer. My father, from a very early age, would be the first thing, because my dad taught me about self-belief, and he taught me I can do anything, and I was raised that way, and I think that you know, in terms of, you know, who's had, I guess he wasn't a mentor, he was my father, but you know, in terms of people that have had impacts, that having been raised with total self-belief and total kind of confidence that if I want to change the world, go change the world, is something I've carried with me. And that's one of the things I like in my day job, because, you know, we are looking after the younger generation, and I believe that each of them will change the world in their own particular way. So I think that, you know, my father is a massive influence in terms of that kind of, that mental strength, I guess, and that kind of that kind of approach. In terms of kind of books and resources, I don't have a brilliant answer for this. I will occasionally listen to TED Talks, and I've listened to some of those. And the other thing in terms of kind of books is that I read quite a lot of autobiographies, because I think there's something that's really interested me, or they've got a really fascinating story, then actually reading their autobiography can be quite inspiring you know, although it's somebody else's life, it can be quite inspiring. And quite often I'll hear somebody at one of the networks that I mentioned, and then I might go and purchase their autobiography and learn a bit more about them, which is probably good business sense from their point of view. That's perhaps why they do the talks, but it works for me in that actually those autobiographies I often find quite impactful.
Thank you. Now, at the beginning, when I asked you the question about what skills, qualities are most important for an entrepreneur, you mentioned resilience. How have you developed resilience, and what do you do when things aren't going well?
Okay, so how have I developed resilience? So I was a long distance runner. Again, I'm going back some years, but I was a distance runner, and I used to run 10K on the track, which, as most of you know, is, as I'm sure, is 25 laps of a track. Now, when you are a 10K runner on the track, quite often the crowd will leave in the middle part of the race. So they watch you at the start and they'll come back and watch you for the last couple of laps. But you will sometimes feel the stadium sort of empty while everyone's going and having a break in the kind of boring bit in the middle of the race, where there's not much happening. So I think my resilience perhaps comes from there, in that I think when you're a long distance runner, you have to rely on yourself. And often it's you and your body against the challenge, against the clock, against you know, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a track race, whatever it is. Actually, for me, people often think, oh, you're a runner, therefore you're competitive. I am competitive, but only with myself. And that's where my competition comes from. It's not about being better than everyone else. It's about being the best I can be. So I think that's one way where my resilience comes from. And I guess the other way is that I've always had an outlet. And I do believe to have, you know, to be resilient, to have mental well-being, I think I would say to anybody, have an outlet, whatever that outlet is. You know, it doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be, you know, animals. It could be knitting. It could be walking. It could be sitting and watching films, whatever it is. But I would say to anybody, in terms of resilience, just make sure you've got an outlet to kind of look after yourself and develop that, you know, that ability to kind of overcome whatever is thrown at you. What do I do when things aren't going well? I keep going. I think would be my answer to that question. You know, because things don't go right all the time. You know, so my answer to that would be keep going. Pause and reflect, depending upon what it is that's not going well. You know, there are times where we all just need to go, actually, I'm just going to pause, I'm just going to reflect. And I think, you know, the other thing I would just say around that when things aren't going well is it's important to know yourself. You know, what are you doing? How do you feel? Do you need to just pause and take a moment? You know, because sometimes if you just keep going, then, you know, then that's when your own resilience can become a bit tested.
That's really good advice. It's not, you know, you talk about keep going, but it's not in all situations, like you're saying. It's appropriate to do that, but you'll know which situations you need to keep going and just fight through that, and which situations you need to take a pause, take back and reflect and kind of assess the situation. So that's really useful advice. Thank you. So I now want to just ask you 3 more questions. I feel like I've just been really bombarding you with questions. It's been really interesting. And this is for all our aspiring entrepreneurs that are on the call today. So what advice would you give to someone looking to start their own business whilst they're working full time?
So this is advice. This is not necessarily what I've done. This is advice. But my advice would be get the balance right. So, and I think that's really important. And when I talk about getting the balance right, just think about the timing of things. So, you know, what did I learn with my small business? Well, actually, it's getting things like payment systems set up, getting things like bank accounts set up, you know, sorting out VAT returns, sorting out any grants, any loans, any of that takes time. And actually it takes more time than you think it's going to take. So I think my advice would be just balance the timing of those things. So, you know, if, you know, take some annual leave from the day job to give yourself the time to, you know, to do those other things, rather than trying to do everything at the same time, because then you do put yourself under lots of pressure. And of course, it's, you know, that's when mistakes might happen as well. So I think, you know, just make sure that you get the balance and you understand what you're going to do when, what needs doing in what order, and making sure that you can, you know, fulfill the needs, challenges, aspirations, ambitions of both your day job, but also whatever business it is you're looking to set up.
Yeah, we often talk to people on the course, when you start your own business course, about having that balance, and also because you make poor decisions when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're feeling overwhelmed. So yeah, thank you for that. So based on what you've just said there, have you made mistakes as an entrepreneur that others can learn from? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started my last answer by saying this is advice and not necessarily what I've done. And I think I think I give that advice on the basis of I'm somebody that thinks I can do everything that I need to do. That, you know, I believe that, you know, if you want a job done, you find a busy person to ask to get the job done, and all of those things. And you know, and I think actually, for me, I probably didn't follow the advice I've just given, which is about having that balance, and making sure that, you know, that actually I did have the time to do both of the things I was trying to do to the best of my ability. And I think the other thing I guess probably a space that lots of people fall into is that balancing the determination to succeed with kind of the obsession to succeed is quite a fine balance. And I set myself really high standards. So, and I think, you know, as this time's gone on, so, you know, for instance, I give you an example. So our cats come into a chalet, and the chalets are set up. There's an in and outer area, and there's toys for the cats to play with them. And when I set them up, everything matches. Everything's in a certain place. Everything's in a certain order. Everything's in a certain way, because my view is it's like, you know, the cats are coming into the posh hotel, you know, and there's nothing, you know, you walk into a posh hotel room and everything looks lovely, and, you know, they do those clever folding things with the towels and all that stuff. You know, that's what I'm creating for the cats and their clients. And nobody quite sets it to my standards. So I will, at midnight, go and change the toys around if they don't all match. And you know, and if the bedding's not quite square, or there's a bit of a tear, I will go and change it. And I've got a bit better. I'm not saying I don't still do that, but I have got a bit better actually, when one of the team have set up the chalet, and actually it's fine. I've kind of learned to leave it. And also maybe to just take the time to explain to them what I'm trying to create and why that setup's so important, and invest in them to help them to understand why I think the chalet being set up to that standard is part of the success of our business. Because actually people come in and go, you know, we have little teddy bears and everything that have got names on and everything, and people will comment on those things. because the detail counts. So I've learned probably to rather than just correct it, to try and get everybody to understand why it's so important, in the hope that at midnight I'm not tidying up teddy bears, and actually they're doing it. They're doing it without my my influence.
And that's really interesting, because it's probably quicker for you to just go in and do it because you know how it needs to be done and what it needs to look like. But then you're not enabling your staff to grow and develop so that they're doing things to the same standard, but not just saying I'd like it in this way. You're explaining to them why this is all part of the service and why this is important. So yeah, so following on from that, and this is a final question for you, what are your 5 top tips, would you say, your 5 tips for entrepreneurs looking to start a business? What would you say they are?
Okay. So I think my 5 would be plan. So understand, you know, what you're trying to do, and set a plan. I think my second one would be don't be afraid to take a risk. You know, measured, calculated, but take a risk. My third would be learn from your mistakes. You know, don't kind of see them as, you know, the end of the world. Just learn from them, and learn what you'll do differently, better, whatever it is next time. But I think that learn from mistakes. I think my fourth one would be recognize your strengths, and then find other people around you who's there and where their strengths are your weaknesses. So kind of surround yourself with people who balance out your weaknesses. And we've all got weaknesses, but I think it's about understanding your strengths, understanding your weaknesses, and then knowing how to kind of plug the weaknesses with people around you, and whether that's mentors or you know, or whoever it may be. But just find those people who provide the balance. And then I think my last one would be to be aware of kind of outside factors. So whether that's, I guess, and some people would say that, you know, kind of be aware of the competition. And I'm not specifically saying being aware of the competition, but certainly be aware of external influences and things that are going on around you. Because I think, you know, having seen what it's like to run a small business, you know, it's really difficult not to get kind of totally ingrained in the detail and focus on kind of day to day, and in some instances in times like COVID, just kind of, you know, keeping the business going. And it's really easy to forget kind of the external influences and the things that are going on around you. So I think my fifth one would just kind of be aware of things that are going on in the immediate location, or other kind of wider factors that might affect the business. I think that was
Thank
5.
you. Yes, it was 5. I think you gave us a bonus one in there as well with 5, because there was 2 parts to that. Really interesting. Thank you. So we have got just over 15 minutes left. So if anyone's got any questions, please pop them into the chat, or you can unmute. Just put your hand up, unmute, and put your hand up, and I'll call you in. If you've got any questions for Angela, please go ahead. Let's see, is it Nikiasha? Go to you first of all.
Yes, hi. My question is this. I'm in the process of setting up a business, and I just want to know, how do I access funding? Funding is not my area of expertise. I just need to know where to get funding from, really.
Well, Casita, you're probably better placed to answer that, because I think my answer would be it all depends a bit on what the business is, doesn't it, and the circumstances. But Casita, you probably can guide better than me on that one.
Yeah, we do. Nikki, we actually have a course, and part of that course, the Start Your Own Business course, we actually look at access to finance, because there are so many things that impact where the finance. So it's the business. I mean, we always try to encourage people to take on as little debt as possible early on in the business.
Yeah.
So look at other opportunities. What else? What do you actually need the funding for? So it's difficult to give a straightforward answer for that without knowing more about your business. But what I have done is I've just asked Ocean to pop into the chat, or will pop into the chat, the link for the course. But if we've got your email address, there is some information that I can send you, just a snapshot information, which has got some steps to access to finance, which looks at loans. It also looks at grants for small businesses. So it looks at the different ways in which you can have funding. So you'll get the link to the course, but I can also send you by email some information about access to finance.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
May I add, please, Cass? I can put a link in the chat for a previous masterclass that spoke about that. I think it was about 2 months ago.
Yeah,
so I'll put the link in the chat to that now. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Steph. Elaine.
Oh, I wanted to ask you something about your approach to customers. I'm thinking about that. There's quite a significant part of the Visionnaires Start Your Own Business course that focus on customers. It's always very interesting to visualize your customer. It's really important. It's something that's often missed with when people are starting businesses, and the students, create an avatar or many avatars of their the customer that they're selling to. And it seems to me, well, it's clear that you have a very good relationship with your customers at the cattery, and I'm just interested in your thoughts on that. And there are many customers that are the cats your primary customer, and then or is it the owners of the cats? And also, if there's anything in running a small business and the customer service that sort of translates to being the CEO of a large college group.
Yeah, thank you. There's quite a lot in there, Elaine. So I'll do my best. No, it's fine. Please don't apologise. I think customers. Yeah. So I think your question about are the cats our customers or are the humans that go with the cats our customers is an important question, actually. From a staffing point of view, you'll appreciate that lots of people that apply to work in the cattery want to be with cats. But actually, importantly for me, is that they have to have the ability to interact with our clients, because that's important too. But I think so. I think it's a balance. Now, cats are clever animals. So if a cat comes to us and has a bad time, generally speaking, the owner will know. So first and foremost, our duty is to the welfare of the animal and looking after the animal, and knowing that actually, if that cat goes home and is its normal self, that means that actually the time with us hasn't been traumatic and they've had a positive experience. And sometimes they go home and people comment that they're even more pleasant, if that makes sense, or they're friendlier or whatever it might be. So I think the welfare of the cat is first and foremost. That's what it's all about. But there is a client care, because as I mentioned earlier, I think some of our clients get very, very, very emotional when they leave the cat with us. So you have to kind of expect some emotion. We've had occasions where a cat's fallen ill, and we've had to make a difficult phone call. Someone, and again, there's a client care, and there's a way of kind of relaying some difficult news. And there's also that interaction, because the clients are leaving their cats with us. So how we present ourselves, we're all in uniform, how we present ourselves, and how we interact, you know, passing the time of day and so on is really important. So I think all of you know, it's a balance of both in terms of customers, and our customers come, as with most businesses, you know, they're wide and varied in terms of age and stage, you know. So for some of our guests, when I say, you know, would you like us to post some pictures of your cat on our Facebook page? You know, actually they don't do Facebook or any kind of social media. So they might say, you know, would you mind ever so if you would email me some photos, and there's accepting that. And then there's some of our other clients who would love me to post a picture of their cat every single day of the 14 days or whatever it is that they're with us, because they're kind of constantly on social media and want to kind of see. So I think all of that is important. Now, I guess the other thing for me from a small business point of view is that my business is at home. So any of our clients they are coming into my home. So, you know, it is in, you know, that there have been occasions where a client has been rude to a member of staff. And for me, in that situation, I'll just say, look, we love your cat, but I'm really sorry, but, you know, we don't want you to book with us again. And I will do that. You know, there was a story which Amanda and Concita have heard, so I won't tell it fully because this is being recorded. But there was an incident where I found a gentleman who was caught short, who was weeing in my garden. He didn't return. So, you know, there are things that go on. You know, that might, you know, no matter how lovely the cat is, the cat may not return, and those instances do happen. In terms of picturing the client, yeah, absolutely, I would encourage it. I think you have to know your audience, and again, I think, you know, and I mentioned this earlier, I think one of the things for you know, the cattery is that people assume that cats are staying with us because someone's gone off, you know, for a holiday, and probably in 60% of instances that's correct. But sometimes the cats are with us, you know, through, you know, real trauma in a family, you know, or difficult circumstances, or people are moving into the area and we are their first kind of experience of a new area. So it's important also to remember that it's not about, thanks very much, it's nice to see you, have a nice holiday. You need to have a bit of an understanding and a bit of intuition around, actually, sometimes people are leaving their cats with us because there's a difficult time in their lives, and that requires a different level of sensitivity. So I think understanding customers, understanding your clients, understanding the service you're providing, or what it is you're selling, or whatever it might be, I think is really important.
Thank you. We've got a few more minutes left. Any other questions from anyone?
There's some in the chat as well,
Pablo, I'll have a look at the chat. Pablo.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was fascinating. I think I want to come back in my next life as a cat so I can stay in your cattery, Angela. That was brilliant. I suppose a question, and you know, you're clearly a very able person in juggling all of those things that you have done and are doing. Would you encourage just about anyone to try starting a business, or do you think it may not be for some people?
It's an interesting question. So I think, yeah, I think probably what I would say is it's not for everyone. You know, I think as you just heard, I mean, I make a choice to do what I do, and I enjoy what I do, but it's not for everyone, and I don't believe it's for everyone to, you know, to be doing what I do, you know, 7 days a week. So I think you have to make a choice and you have to do what's right for you. And I think it, you know, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility being the CEO of Capital City College Group, and there's a lot of responsibility being an MD of a company, and there's a lot of regulation that goes with both. Actually, it's the other thing that's there's odd similarities, because obviously catteries and kennels are licensed and regulated, as education is. So that level of responsibility isn't for everyone. So I think you've got to make that kind of decision about, actually, do you want that level of responsibility? Do you want that lifestyle? Do you want, to an extent, a level of constant worry about everything? And I am of the view that we're all different, and we've all got different strengths and weaknesses. And if we were all the same, then the world would be a dull place, and actually it wouldn't function either. And I've had some brilliant people come and work in the cattery. One of my members of staff, she's actually on maternity leave at the moment, but I mean, she's brilliant, she's super. And I spoke to her one day and I said, do you want to manage the cattery? Do you want me to take a step back, and do you want to manage it? And she said, no, thanks. And I fully respect that, because she doesn't want the added worry. She's brilliant. She's brilliant with the clients. She's brilliant with the cats. She almost sets up to my standard in terms of the chalets. She's brilliant, but she doesn't want to have the added worry. She doesn't want to be doing staff rotas, and she doesn't want to be worrying about timesheets, and she doesn't want kind of people asking her questions. So I think that's great. I think we all make decisions, and we have to make decisions based on what we think is right for us.
Thank you. So, Angela, there's a few questions in the chat for you. Thanks for putting the link in, Steph and Ocean. So, one from Alwyn. Alwyn, are you still with us? Do you want to unmute and ask your question about starting a business in education?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. I've
been listening to Angela, and it's very interesting in starting a small business. I know you can hardly see me here. I'm in the classroom, but my question was to Angela. When you hear a lot about the small business and how she started it, I had an idea. My in-laws being from Poland, and they make a lot of wonderful soups. And I was thinking, it would be good to open just a location that specializes just in soups and different kinds of bread, whole bread, and things along that line. But that vision died because the seasons came into play. How would that business survive during the summer and spring and all of that? But so my question is, if someone has a vision similar to what I have, would you encourage them to go along with that, even though there are those disadvantages? Or would you take into consideration that this could be a major setback based on the seasons in a business such as the soup business? Because you associate soups with kitchen soups and all of that, but I have this feeling that it could be an elite business if you market it well.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think there's lots of things that are seasonal, aren't there? And I think my approach would be to go, okay, I've got this great idea, but I know that kind of seasonality is going to affect it. So how do I mitigate the seasonality impact of my business? So if I can, I don't know, if people, I guess what you're suggesting is that soup is more popular in the colder months than it is in the warmer
Exactly.
months. I guess is what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
So I think for me it would be about, okay, so what in the warmer months, what might be possible? Or actually, is it about, this business is going to run for 6 months of the year, but not the other 6 months of the year, and what would I plan? Is that feasible? Can I make it work for 6 months and do something else for 6 months, or is that an absolute barrier? I think that would be how my mind would go, and build the plan around it being 6 months of the year. And I don't know. I guess cold soup is not a thing in the summer, but maybe it is. Maybe with your soup, maybe it could be a thing. I don't know. That would be how I would think about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Angela. So there's a few more questions, and we've just got a small amount of time now. We might go over just to answer these. But there's a question from Nana, be an interesting one. So, hi, Angela. Thanks for the talk. And the two questions for her are: one, you mentioned the importance of creating longevity in your business and your preference for setting short-term goals to achieve long-term objectives. When you first started your small business, did you have a plan for scaling up? If so, could you elaborate on what that plan entailed and how it has evolved over time? And the second question is, did you ever have to deal with imposter syndrome when you embarked on your journey as a small business owner and CEO? And how did you tackle this? So two questions there.
Okay. So kind of building, sorry, the first one, Casita, was about longevity.
Yes, yeah. And if you had, and when you started your small business, did you have plans to scale? And if so, could you elaborate on what those plans to scale were?
Yeah, I mean, I think so plans for scale. I think the starting point for me was about kind of, as I said earlier, I want to run this business to the best of my ability. So and I think, you know, in the sense of, you know, the best form of marketing are your existing client base. So actually improve the service, you know, get the rates right, that, you know, the charging right, get the stock control right, get all of those things right, and then build, you know, and then growth will come. So I think for me, it wasn't about, initially, it wasn't about actually, I have a plan for growth and scale, and I want to double, you know, double the turnover in X amount of time. It was more about actually, I want to run this business really well, and I want to provide a really excellent service. That's brought growth. You know, in 4 years, we've doubled the turnover, but it wasn't that wasn't a kind of I absolutely must. It was more about actually, I'm going to do this well, and we've built up a client base. You know, we've got some decent reviews. You know, there's not really now a quiet month. You know, when, you know, normally in catches and kennels, there's certain points in the year, a bit like the soup question. You know, there's certain points in the year, it's quite seasonal. So, you know, you're full in July and August, but you're empty in January, February. That sort of thing happens quite a lot. Actually, now, by not closing at any point, by always responding to emails quite promptly, by keeping our Facebook posts going every day, 7 days a week, you know, by answering the telephone, by having decent booking systems, by upgrading the website and ensuring people can inquire via the website, by all of those things, it's led to the growth. You know, and now, you know, now the business is at a point where actually we could genuinely make some capital investment, you know, and you know, to expand, if you like, the physical resource, and I think the business would withstand it, i.e., we would fill the additional spaces, if we had, you know, if we do invest in extending it. So I think the growth plan probably came by wanting the category to be a success. You know, but first and foremost, it was about good quality service, and I think the growth came afterwards. And Casita, the second question was about
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the second question, you've got a flurry of questions here. I'm going to take some as a bulk amount of questions, the ones around funding, and send something out maybe with the recording through Steph later. But I'm going to just ask a couple more. But the second part was, did you have to deal with imposter syndrome when you embarked on your journey as a small business owner and CEO, and how did you tackle this, if you did experience that?
No, it's not. It's not something. It's not something I've experienced. I think. Yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome, I think, is about kind of that kind of a level of self-doubt. I think for me, never been there in terms of imposter syndrome, but I think what I have been is in a position where, you know, being my own biggest critic and competing against myself, that, you know, that has some challenges around it, in that actually if I make a mistake, I don't need anybody else to tell me I've made a mistake, because I will be beating myself up much harder than anybody else. So I guess that's kind of a level. And how do I deal with it? I think I said earlier, I think when I am being tough on myself, it's about having that outlet and make sure I have time to reflect and make sure I have time to go, okay, what do I need to do? I need to have some space. I need to get some fresh air, whatever it is that I need to do. And then and then we move forward. I think is probably the closest I've come to imposter syndrome.
So there's a few questions here. Steph sent a link around access to finance. There's a couple of questions around funding. So just picking the question. So somebody's asked for information about your business, and if you've got a Facebook page, could you share the link? And another question in here is, thanks for the insight and inspiration. I'd like to understand, how do you market yourself in your professional role and your small business? You mentioned you started before the pandemic. How early did you start marketing your business, the Cattery?
Okay. So 2002, when was lockdown? 2020. So 2019. You know, and I think again, marketing the small business. I did some website was one of the first things I did. We did some leaflet drops. You know, we did some sort of very active marketing, if you like. We did some magazine adverts and say some leaflet drops, the website. And then, as I say, it's been building up the profile and building up the client base. And the best form of marketing for us is word of mouth. And we've had a lot of that. I did introduce a refer a friend. So actually, lots of people don't tell us, but if they do, somebody does recommend us to somebody else, then we'll give their cat a free stay, a free 1-day stay. We did that for a period of time as well, which I think again was more a thank you for people that were recommending us than a kind of active marketing ploy. But we did a number of things like that, you know, to really support us. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question. If your home didn't come with a business, what would you have done as a business?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess probably I should have mentioned that earlier, because it's been one of the questions, the answer to one of the questions. I think, you know, my business is at home. So whilst I might be working in my business, I am at home. I think if my business wasn't at home, it wouldn't be doable, you know, because then the balance wouldn't be right. But actually, I do get home from work and the business is here, and I think that's what makes it manageable. So yeah, I think that probably answers the question. That I don't think I would have the capacity to set up a business off-site and do the day job. I think that would be a step too far.
Yeah. So we're just going to ask one more question, because we've actually gone over. We should have finished at 5, but there's an interesting one here. Somebody's asked a question. Hi, Angela. I went on the Visionnaires Start Your Own Business course, which was brilliant, by the way, really helpful. My question is, if you do get a grant or funding, how do you please both your business and stakeholders' expectations? And how do you choose where you get funding from? But we'll answer the second part. We'll deal with the second part. So if you want to just answer the first part, is how do you please both your business and stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think applying for grants and finance, I mean, again, you know, Casita, you and team are, you know, have expertise in that arena, I know. But I mean, I think when you're applying for any grants or access, I think you need to know what the conditions are of that finance, so that you know you can satisfy those conditions. And then you can get the balance right with, you know, satisfying, if you like, the funder, as well as actually what you've secured the funding to do. And I think, you know, it's you know, sometimes saying no is difficult, isn't it, for all of us? But you do have to say no sometimes. You know, and you know, again, perhaps not the best example, but I'll give you an example. You know, there's lots of families across the UK who have a cat and a dog. Some of you may have a cat and a dog. So a question I quite often get answered is, will I do kennels as well as a cattery? And therefore people could come to us and they could leave their cat with us and their dog with us, and it would be very convenient. And I suspect there's probably a business opportunity in there. And there probably would be loan and finance should I want to invest in a kennels to do both. But actually, I know that the performance of the cattery would be affected if I was to do that. Kind of frankly, primarily because cats like quiet and dogs are noisy. So that in itself would present a challenge, and I know would ultimately affect the performance of my cattery. And even the clients that are asking me to do both, I know would see a change in the service they're getting from the cattery. And therefore the answer is no. In a really nice, polite way, the answer is no. So I think it's that balance between making sure you know what the conditions of the funding are, and making sure you know what you need to do with it, and then making sure people are you know, around you, your clients, your stakeholders understand you know, what it is you're going to be doing, and perhaps importantly what you're not going to be doing.
Angela, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for coming along this afternoon. That's the last of our questions. There is a couple of links in the chat. There is one to an Access to Finance webinar that we did, and there's also a link to both the Start Your Own Business and On Your Marks courses. They're in the link, but you can also contact us directly through the information, because we'll have you registered as you've bought a ticket for tonight's event. So Angela, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really been interesting, and thank you everybody for coming along.
Thanks everybody. Good night. Enjoy the sunshine.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you can stop the recording now, Elaine. Thank you.